how to accept a great month in business without being so negative about it. So I recently had someone inside of Agency Ignition talk to me and say like, hey, on one of our coaching calls, they're like, you're a blessing since we started Agency Ignition. This is not about that, but he was saying, we just signed our first couple clients and we've been doing pretty well, and yeah, Cold Outbound's really starting to work for our SEO agency. And I was like, dude, that's fantastic. I'd love to hear it. Let's keep killing it, brother. And he's like, I know you're a big mental health advocate for entrepreneurs and things like that. He was like, so can I ask you a question? And I was like, yeah, man, shoot it over. And he's like, a little bit personal. I was like, that's fine. So at the end of our coaching call, we hung out and we talked for a minute, and we basically said to each other like, hey, man, I went out with my wife to dinner, and I was like, okay, that's awesome, to celebrate what would be their best month in business, signing 3 new clients. And I was like, dude, that's awesome, brother, that's awesome. And he told me, he's like, regardless of everything, how do I get out of this fight or flight mode? And I was like, what do you mean by that exactly? Can you explain a little bit more? And he goes into detail and says, all right, I love what I do, don't get me wrong, and I rather wouldn't be doing anything else. But the problem is that I always feel like that, even when things are good, right, clients are happy, it's that, I'm always thinking about, man, business is always on my mind, Even when I'm with the wife, I'm looking at client messages, I'm looking at Slack, and she was, telling me, you're going to be present or what? And I was like, oh, man, I know how that feels for sure. And he's like, do you still feel that way? So I told him this. I said, yeah, I do. I think when you enter a business world, especially as you being founder and CEO, there's a lot of things on your plate, because it's not just one thing you worry about, right? Like a job. Like when I was a server in a restaurant, I had to give the best customer service of my life. That was my duty. I didn't really care about the money that came in, you know what I mean? Like to the business, or I didn't really care about marketing the business, things like that. So what does that look like for you, right? Well, of course, in our stage or beginning stages, or when we start our entrepreneurial journey, it's kind of like you're the everything man, right? You do fulfillment, you do the marketing, you do the sales, everything, client communications. So you're doing awesome, which is just an amazing feat in itself, okay? Don't defer from the fact and be proud of yourself for that. But let me ask you this. What would you imagine life like if you never thought about it? And he told me a very interesting answer, actually. He said, I think it'd be much more peaceful. I was like, okay, well, what do you feel like needs to happen for you to achieve that peace? And he said, I don't know, this is kind of where I'm lost. So I said, okay, do you mind if I share a perspective with you? And he's like, of course. So I said, at the stage that we're at right now, there's never really a turn-off switch, right? Even last night, my friend and I went out to dinner, and it was very casual, but a really nice time. And even while we're eating dinner, I'm sitting there and thinking about all right, well, got my flight tomorrow, gotta record these videos. You can't see my bags over here. I'm ready to get out the door in 30 minutes. But, it's gotta record the videos, got these client campaigns I gotta launch, and I just kind of hit myself with be present. This is something that I've been working on a lot myself over the past couple months in understanding this complex thinking aspect, because obviously when you take the trip into entrepreneurship and owning your own business and being different from the regular crowd of going to college and working and getting a job or whatever the case is and working 9 to 5, you get stuck in this paradox of continuous thoughts and conversation between what happened before, what's happening now, what needs to happen, all right? And I'm sure it runs like clockwork. I would notice it at times where I'd be on sales call talking to people, and they'd be speaking to me, and I'm just staring at the camera, and I'm not really listening to them. Or it's that, hey, I'm trying to launch a campaign, a client emails me, I get a Slack notification, and disruption occurs. So I presented it like this. How can I remain present at all times with 100%? What does that mean? What do you mean by that? There's a scientific study that I researched on, and it talked about how humans, and I used to be one of these guys, used to praise multitasking, where in scientific proof, your brain kind of does wah, 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 it goes back and forth with each other. It's all right, let me look at this plant, I gotta think about feeding the dog, she's sleeping over there, ready to go, I gotta take her walker, 27 minutes, for the flight, client campaigns, or you're sitting there, especially with scrolling, they made it like that, scrolling on the phone, keeping your attention span, you're everywhere. And if you're a person that has suffered with, ADHD, right, then that's even harder for you. So how can you remain present? I'll tell you kind of my strategy that allowed me to do it. This might not work for you, but I figured I'd still share it anyways for everybody who's felt and gone through the same thing. So one thing was that I wanted to make sure I worked with 100% tenacity at wherever I am and whatever I'm doing. And I'm still learning to adjust to this. I'd say I'm getting good at it, but I'm not there by all means. In a simplified version, whatever you're doing right now, what is happening right now is going to be your focus, going to be your concentration piece, and not letting outside factors influence it. So main thing going into this year, and I've always known this, I've tried it before and I ditched it and I made it like important now, was Alex Hormozi's Maker and Manager schedule, where certain days you'd have uninterrupted long work blocks to focus on tasks, and other days would be your manager days where you do calls and check-ins and you're allowed to be distracted, and you have a clear differentiator between the two. And I set it up like this when I first started. I was like, yeah, this is going great. But I had this big problem where on, the maker days, I'd still be distracted, right? I'd still answer emails, client messages, or my phone would buzz, and I wouldn't really get as much hard, heavy work that I wanted to get done. And at the end of the day, I'd be very frustrated with my performance. So after researching this over and over and understanding that human psychology isn't built to multitask, then we have to cater to what we naturally just succumb to, right? So anytime that I'm making a video, focusing on a task, and whatever I'm in the present moment of doing is I want to remain 100% focused on what that is. And, a little cheat code that helps me is just, catering to your senses, right? For me, specifically, it's physical touch. So if I'm like trying to remain locked in, you know what I mean? I would probably hold on to the desk, grab the table, maybe cross my hands, or just, do something. And it sounds silly in theory, but in the reality aspect of it is that you need to keep reminding yourself that you need to be present right now in this moment. Because when you're already thinking about, the messages, or thinking about how you got to do this campaign or this client or this works, and you're just really like pulling your current aspect of focus and thought out of its realm to where you're left into a position of distraction and disruption. Therefore, if you go to have a nice dinner with your wife, such as our student here, now you're stuck in a position where you're trying to enjoy this nice moment and it's kind of catered in your mind. And because it's catered in your mind, you're not really going to be 100% there. So by using this technique has allowed myself and a couple others to just simply remain okay, right now we're having a very distinguished meal, nice conversation, I'm learning more. Let me make sure my ears, eyes, mouth, and everything is dialed in on this specific situation that is occurring right now in front of me. Because whatever happened in the past already happened. There's no changing and going about that. Whatever's in the future hasn't happened yet, right? I've kind of manifested that today for client campaign work. I'd rather do it at the airport because I don't think I'm going to be recording a YouTube video at the airport. I have before though. So now, making videos. Keep the phone on what I have set up through your focus. If you have the iPhone, there's like a focus area in your phone. I created a new thing called Life Clarity. And the only notifications I'm allowed to receive is calls and texts from my girlfriend, my mom, and my dad. That's it, all right? Anything else automatically gets silenced. And I still relatively go through on breaks and everything and answer all the texts and calls that I get, but the point being is that you need to limit everything, because you look over here, look over there, there's always something that's trying to steal your attention, distraction, or whatever the case may be. And I'm sure you know it, because we've always talked about we gotta lock in, you know what I mean? Having full focus is something we rarely do nowadays. I mean, think about it. Like, do you listen to music while you work? Do you, feel like you always have to have something? You listen to music before you go to sleep, you have to watch a show before you go to bed, something that really caught my attention throughout, trying all this was taking boring breaks. I might work for 55 minutes straight, and then maybe I'll look at the wall for 5 minutes, just reset my brain. Or one of my favorite things to do is go for walks. I like to always walk around my neighborhood and try to hit 10,000 steps a day. So in those aspects, it's just like a great reset to remember once again that we have to be present in our moment, right? We have to look at the trees, look at nature, read books, and enjoy the silence, because there's so much that goes on, man. We always have ads, music, people talking to us, and sometimes, in an atmosphere like this, just peace and quiet, man. Sometimes I work my best in peace and quiet. If you guys know Brain FM, that's really helpful to like channel those inner type of brainwave thoughts to enter flow state. And it's all about really doing it over and over, and just keep reminding yourself that this is something that I need to continuously do. Because once you get into habit of doing it, it now once again rolls like clockwork, right? So now it's like, all right, I gotta work right now, no distractions, or let's say you're hanging out with a friend last night and you have to go to bed at 10:30 so you could get 8 hours of sleep to wake up at 6:30. It's like, listen, man, had a pleasure, but I really gotta go to bed and I take my sleep seriously. So see you later. Now you build this consistency around yourself that, all right, I gotta stick to what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna do it with 100%. So I'm gonna sleep at 100%, don't use your phone before bed, the blue light in your eyes, or watch TV, and Again, this all sounds like simple stuff, but it's easier said than done. That is true. Just start slowly but surely. I don't know, if you use your phone an hour before you go to bed right now, try 30 minutes the next day. Clock it. Then do 15 minutes, then do 2 minutes. Then maybe try reading a book instead. That's good for you, because if you've noticed, if any of you who read, if you read before bed, you'll notice that you fall asleep and get so much tired faster, which kind of leaves you like a little frustrated. Like, I wanted to read, and now like I'm already ready to go to bed. But the thing is, it's so different than being on the phone. Because blue light tells your brain, like, all right, I gotta wake up. It's time to get up. Time to get up. And like, you're actually going to bed. But you know, it just doesn't differentiate the two because of the light that's hitting your eyes and how your brain's recepting it. So, moral of the story is, my brother who's going through this, and you're not alone with this fight or flight mode of like, all right, gotta do this, gotta do that, gotta do that. But sometimes just remember why we're doing all this. For moments like that, enjoy the time with your wife, enjoy your situations that you're in, because sometimes that's all we could do. You know, we're not superheroes. We can't do literally everything in the planet. But then also don't discredit yourself, because you know, you got guys like Elon Musk, who's head of 3 major companies and really trying to do it all. So just think about how you spend your time, and as you actively spending your time doing it, where your thoughts are. And sometimes you need to write it out. That really helps me. I don't have it here because I'm not at my desk, but I have a notepad on my desk where I always like jot down these feelings and emotions. All right? So, Mila's getting pretty antsy. Hope that helped out any of you who have felt the same way, and see you in the next one. Subscribe for more.